Hello.
Howdy,
What's life like in your part of the world?
warm. Kinda, yeah. It isn't as bad as it was, but it's kind of steamy.
Do you
So
still have that heat dome thing going on?
yeah, it broke a little bit, and I think it's probably coming back. But we had a bunch of, thunderstorms, you know, blow out some of the heat, and then it's sort of
And then it's worse
ramps
after
back up.
because the humidity
Exactly.
goes through the roof.
Yeah. But Riverside is paradise as usual, or
Triple digits.
dry heat.
Actually, they're saying that it's going to be a lot of high humidity, as
Yeah,
some of the docs were saying that it really is true that it feels warmer when there's humidity because your body can't throw off the heat as well. So yeah, we're not used to that either. Our heat's usually very dry heat. Because usually we get the temperature's 102, but it feels like 94, where most people it's the opposite, right?
yeah,
Temperature's this and it feels like this, it's just higher. But now we've got the humidity. I don't know why. I think the weather's just, gone
yeah. I
crazy.
I forget if I already told the story where my parents grew up in Chico in the Central Valley. That like it was nice, dry heat, totally reasonable, and then they started planting rice, and so the humidity went up like 30%, and so all of a sudden it was a mess.
There's a great idea. Let's plant rice in the middle of a desert.
Exactly.
Gee, I wonder why we have a water shortage problem in California.
Yeah, yeah.
And the Central Valley is all wall to wall almonds, and almonds take a tremendous amount of water. It's like
Yes.
no sense.
Yeah, they have
But
some
I like
peaches.
almonds, so I
Yeah, I
don't-
know, right? It's just that everything grows so well
yeah.
as long as you irrigate it
As long as you have
profusely.
water, yeah, everything's
Yeah,
good.
yeah. Let's see. So is this us? Nancy is gonna be late.
And is Meg coming today?
No,
Okay, then that's this is
that's
us.
agenda item 3. Uh,
All right, let me pull up the agenda.
so let me get my stuff together here. Um, yeah, so Meg stepped back from the projects. So Meg and Stephanie are out. They both sort of had job changes and were having a hard time integrating the project into kind of what they were doing. So
Oh, I wasn't
so we
aware.
are down. You're down to one Canadian. Unfortunately, it was like so. You have to stay strong. Yeah, so the other half of the agenda item was, I guess I sent out a message about the Stilly meeting. Um I don't know if Ruth had anything else to add, or if anybody had any questions about it or anything else.
It went great. I think the facilitation was great and everyone at our table was like participating and so yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, I forget what I put in the note because it was a while ago, and doing and I was just walking around in the heat until just now, so I'm not well prepared. But uh yeah, and I think I might have mentioned like the things that they brought up in terms of observing stuff were all sort of like fit into little Tolman things, right? There was a Tolman response to kind of pretty much everything that they brought up. So it was sort of, I don't know, validating for that kind of a thing. I don't know. Any sort of general comments before we sort of jump into the agenda. Okay. All right. So the full text review, it seems like a lot of people made a lot of progress. So we're getting, I was just looking at it right before the meeting. We've got 326 done and about 100, a little bit more than 100 to go, the vast majority of which have one vote in. So we only need one vote on 70 and then two votes on about 40. So we're right on the verge of being done. So we'll keep on grinding away a little bit. And then we sort of set the tentative deadline of like mid-ish July. So so if we can kind of like people can do 20 in the next few weeks, then we're pretty much there. And then we can be done with the full text review and on to the next stage, which involves more reading, but a different kind of reading. So in light of that, the other I guess agenda item two, sort of talking about the extraction phase of this thing. So typically, I don't know, I guess let's see. I mean, I guess I forget. Did we ever talk about the extraction template stuff?
Not that I recall.
Okay. So maybe I can share a screen. Well, I'm not sure. I didn't prepare well for this. So I'm trying to think if there's a good example of like a template that I can show. Okay, sorry. Let me go back to. Sorry, I'm on the road, so I'm also on a small screen instead of my regular dual screen. So I need. There we go. Okay. Right. I will try to share screen. Okay. All right. I don't know how nice this is gonna look since it's on a small screen. Um, this is like a template from another thing, from another project. Um, so there's sort of like this little editor thing, so it tells you whatever, like it has the element, so it's kind of sort of drag and droppy. Um, you sort of name a thing that you want to capture, and then it could be a checkbox kind of a thing. So for this example, um, this is sort of kind of the markup language here. So like content of the submission is sort of the big heading, and then sort of the data element. The first data element is like methods utilized, and then these are sort of the options. So was it an argumentative essay? Was it a case study? Was it mixed methods, qualitative, quantitative, blah, blah. So like that's one thing, right? The next data item is like a radio button that says, is it, whatever. Is it yes? Is it no? The next one is sort of like a fill in the box kind of a thing. Free response. So it's kind of, if you've done sort of online templates or surveys or things like that, it's pretty similar. So that's sort of the overall structure. And then let me see. Yeah, so you can go through and basically, these little, H things, tell you, that's you're basically heading levels and things like that. And the other things describes what the data elements are. So let me see if I can. um, yeah. Um, I don't want to mess up my data. The other thing. So I was trying to like open up an actual template to show you what it looks like when you enter it. Yeah, okay, so maybe there we go. No, it's not it. Oh, yeah, maybe it is. So okay, so when you go to extract a document, so it pulls up the documents as one half of the window, and the other half of the window is your basic, just like a whatever, just like a survey, monkey thing or whatever, right? That it pulls up the things and lets you click the check boxes, click the radio buttons, fill in the blanks and stuff like that. So it looks kind of just like you sort of hope it would look. Um, and so that's kind of so that's what you do in the extraction phase, right? So we come up with the questions that we want to answer. We and then it sort of pulls up that document, and then you get to like fill those in, and it's the same thing as last time, where we can have two people do the extraction phase, and then let's see here. And then yeah, just like viewing the final data. Um, so like this is what we put in, or this is what one person put in. So I check this box, the other person checked that box. And then there's sort of this resolution thing, right? So the final data is whatever's in whatever leftmost column there. Yeah, and again, like was the radio button yes or no? What did we type in for these things? So in general, there's going to be and when so typically, one person will put in one thing, one person will put in the other thing, and then it'll go to sort of a resolution. At which point, that third column, if the answer is the same, it'll bring it over. If the answer is different, it'll just highlight it and say that, whatever. And then whoever is the resolver will get to do that. And certainly the free text fields are typically going to be not the same. And so somebody's going to have to interpret those two. Um, and sometimes, in this other project, what we did was just brought in both of the answers if it was appropriate to do so, because what happens after we have this data extraction form. We get all this information about all these papers, and then we mine it for quotations and anecdotes and basically evidence for illustrating, if we came up with a theme that says, okay, here's one of the themes that was covered in these papers, then we go back to this data form and try to extract out here's the text, pieces of text that illustrate that, right? And then that's sort of what fleshes out the qualitative part of the analysis. So I don't know. I sort of talked a lot. I'm not sure how coherent it was. So feel free to ask questions. Does this sort of make sense in general, at least from a process standpoint?
Yes, this is very helpful.
Okay. All right. So
I
again,
had no
that's
idea what the next step was after the review, so this is
okay.
helpful. And I noticed you built this data collection instrument within consensus, right? So you keep it right in there. And that's how
Evidence,
it's able to
yes.
pull up the article or whatever. Yeah, it's good.
The nice thing is like when you go to extract the data, it automatically will pull up that article so that you don't have to independently
Mhm.
find it and and then go back and forth and compare. So it nicely, does the split screen, and you can sort of do that.
That's great.
Um, yeah. So some of that is also, or like when you're sort of thinking about, so what do we need to capture and how, um, one of the things to keep in mind is, okay, so like when it gets to the analysis phase, what information is going to be upfront that we can just mine this without having to necessarily go back to the paper yet again. There probably inevitably there will be some cases of having to go back, right? Because we're not necessarily going to capture all the information the first pass through, because we're not going to be aware of, all of the themes, for example, until we actually go through the data and stuff. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But this is like a way to try to capture as much useful stuff as we can up front so that at the very least, it'll be a good guide, right? So that if we're like, oh, what's a paper that will have information about this aspect, that it will be there, right? And then if we need to, we can go back and grab, specific locations or something. So, okay.
Sorry, I have a question.
Yep.
Um, so I noticed that like Providence has some of the inter-rater reliability stuff. Is that applicable in this particular case for any of the steps?
Um, so yes, so it does. So I don't know if you like, I forget, I forget because I forget who I've told what about things, but I forget if I shared an inter-rater reliability for us or not. I don't. Maybe no, I don't think so
I
with
don't
this
think
group.
so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, so it does keep the cumulative scores, right? So like in that title abstract um phase, right? It actually keeps track by person, right? So like person iterators. So you can export, which maybe you did, right? Like exported the iterator reliability, and then maybe there was like
Hmm.
an Excel file that had
Yep.
like you versus me and Meg
Hmm.
versus Kent and all kinds of stuff, right? To see what our
Yep.
match ratios were, right? Yeah. Yeah. So if we so and the reason that they keep that is like if we wanted to report that, right? So if we wanted, because people generally don't report every
Yep.
single person, but they might report overall, right? So they'll just sum up everybody's match percentage and just say we had a 95% match or something like that, or an 81% match. And I think I collected it at the very least, well, yeah, I think I collected it for our first pilot phase, right, where I said this is the number of matches we had, and I think it was a pretty high number, right? So, and generally, like before Covidence automated all that stuff, and actually, so sometimes what people will do is they will do duplicate evaluations on the pilot, and then they'll say, okay, if we have an X percentage match, then we're only going to have one person do the evaluations, right? So if it's a 90% match, then we're just going to say one person can do it, and we think it's fine, as a way to reduce the amount of work that we have to do. But we think we decided that we were going to do two is the whole way. So um, so yeah. Um, so yeah, I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah,
Did you
that
get your
answers
question?
definitely. Yeah, I was curious. Thank you.
Okay. I wasn't sure if I cut you off. Okay. Yeah, so it's nice it captures that. So like when it comes time to report, then we'll be able to grab whatever it is we need to grab. Um, okay. So let's see. So yeah, I included the sort of the quotation from our um protocol, right? That said these are the kinds of things that we're talking about capturing. So just, because as long as we put together the protocol document, we should at least consider it as we're going into this stage. So, um, and some of these things are like more substantive than others, right? So, so for example, like if we're capturing geography, so it might be nice to know if we're saying that we're capturing US and Canadian perspectives, like what the ratio is of Canadian versus US, papers. So something like that. Or it might be nice to sort of get a sense of, we have, there's some frequently studied groups, right? So I think education students is a big chunk of people. Health educate or health science students is another kind of big chunk of people that have been studied in this context. So I think it's useful to potentially to try to capture that information as well, right? Like who's, are they undergraduates or postgraduates, things like that. So, um, so again, we sort of brainstormed several months ago, I think, like some of these categories. And so I guess it will be useful now to sort of maybe revisit that and say, does this still seem reasonable, particularly in light of like the papers that you've been reading, and just sort of like thinking about them, like what is it that I was interested in? What is it that I think will help answer our questions? Um, I guess I probably should have put our research question, our overall research question in this list as well, or in this agenda as well. But I forget. Let's see. Do we have? Trying to remember where we put our research question. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't remember.
I think it's over on the scoping review process document. Yeah.
Okay, is this?
Yeah, I think that's it.
That's okay. Was that just me who dropped out, or was that
Oh, I didn't notice.
okay? All right. Um, I guess I got kicked out momentarily, but maybe not. Or maybe you didn't. It wasn't apparent. Okay. All right. So research question. Okay. All right. Did I stop sharing my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Maybe that wasn't what happened.
When you were saying earlier in the earlier document you had up population, are you talking about discipline specific research there? So if it was in chemistry or literature or computer technology, or are you talking about were these undergraduates, graduate students?
Yeah.
Is that the Yeah, because it says population studied but before that it says disciplines. So I think, I guess I'm a little unsure of what we mean by population study. So
Yeah.
these are all higher education papers, right? So,
I think I agree with you. I think it wasn't clear from us, but based on what we've read, I do think the distinction between, at least what I've seen so far, graduate students versus undergraduate students, community college students versus four-year institutions,
okay,
HBCU versus non-HBCU, like that's probably some
that
of
might be
those.
useful. And
Yeah.
yeah, med school.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that in my mind.
Yeah, that maybe type of institution is even a different category from level, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Um, yeah, and it wasn't necessarily coherent, the list that we put that we were sort of putting together. So absolutely,
Good start.
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, we actually did pretty good. Seeing it again, I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I was trying to brainstorm a second ago. We were pretty close.
Yeah. And again, with pedagogies and learning environments, this kind of has one category there. So I'm not sure how to draw that distinction between, are you talking about modalities? Is it online? Is it face-to-face? Is it hybrid? Are we
Yeah.
talking about they were using small group learning or active learning or team-based learning? If we're talking about the pedagogies.
Yeah. So would you say that
That would confuse me
modality?
if I was trying to check a box. I'm just saying.
Okay. So should we have a modality and a pedagogy?
Yeah, I
I
think
think
I'm
that's
not.
just
This is
those are different things in my view, but that's just me, maybe. It's like,
yeah.
because often the resistance is to doing portfolio work or doing this or doing that. So that would come under, pedagogical choices that I assign this or I have them working in teams or whatever. And that's where they were resistant. Because that would be interesting to me. How much of this resistance falls into certain types of, we know active learning is going to be a big box because
Right.
lots of students resist active learning.
I guess one of the other sort of elements that that we sort of put together was sort of this bucket one and or two. So
Right.
there could be a checkbox for
Yeah, I think that would
which
be
bucket
helpful.
we think it is.
yep.
Okay.
And in interpretation of the source of the resistance, that would just be like you copy and paste that in there, or would that be yes, they talked about it, no, they didn't talk about it? I'm just curious. I think
Yeah,
that's
I
an
think
important element to look at. I'm not challenging that, but
right, because yeah, again, like going back to like how are we going to use the data? So
right,
if we're sort of like reporting, demographics of these things, right, then sort of like the checkboxy yes no kinds of data bits would be appropriate. And if we're looking at sort of more of the in-depth qualitative analysis, then that's when you sort of go for the fill in the blank data elements, right?
yeah. I
So
think the
so that's sort of
definition
what
of
you were saying,
resistance.
right?
I'm sorry. No, you weren't. Go ahead.
No, no, no.
Obviously, the definition of resistance, that seems like that needs to be a text fill-in box because that's key to our research question, how has it been defined is right there in our research question. So that I think probably should be a text box because we're going to want to do some qualitative analysis of how people defined resistance,
Yeah, if they did at all, right?
if they did it at all.
Yeah.
And then I noticed in the example you gave, some of those boxes were empty and somebody had written not applicable. So that could be an option to say, well, they didn't actually define what they meant by resistance, because I'm sure we'll find something like that.
Yeah, that was the interesting finding from the other group was, that these are studies of the scholarship of teaching and learning, and lots of people didn't define what the scholarship of teaching and learning was, right? It was just like
Now,
it was like you jump in and just say, this is what I'm doing, without saying, here's the framework that I'm coming from. So that was kind of an interesting thing, which is not atypical overall. Okay. So the definition, so the interpretation of the source would be, and probably, the recommendations, if we're still doing those. Let's see. So yeah, methodology.
And then we were also asking in the sub-questions here how it maps to the Tolman model. So is there a way to incorporate that? Or is that something we do at the next level of analysis?
Yeah, so right.
Or are we still looking at that? Are we still looking for that?
Yeah, because I guess yeah, when we're start talking about maybe when we're talking about the interpretation of the source of resistance,
Mm-hmm.
I guess we're looking at the author's, right, interpretation of the source, versus our interpretation of the source.
Yes, that's what I assumed you meant by that.
Yeah.
Did they say, we think they resisted because of this? Or did they not go there?
Yeah. So that's a good question, whether so because that will be an interpretive, part on, for us in the extraction, if we were to say, well, what Tolman characteristic is this? And maybe that's a second order thing to do, right? I mean, so if we're already if we're using sort of the author's own words to interpret the source, right, then we've captured the data from the document, right? And then maybe when it comes to analyzing the data, then we would say, okay, like this is a metacognitive stage, or this is a whatever prior experiences in the classroom,
I'm trying to think. Yeah.
source.
Yeah, I'm trying to think like you're really talking about, do they attribute it to something? Like, do they point to something for it? I'm trying to remember if I've seen that in a way that would be explicit enough for me to go, they do, and it's this, right?
Yeah, again, like there's usually a lot of there's usually like that motivation piece to say whatever, like this is why we care about this problem, because
Yeah.
students whatever have this behavior. And sometimes they try to identify like a lot of times it's a psychological model of um whatever, so it could be, I don't know, so I don't know, I'm just trying to think recently, like one of it was sort of like goal orientation, right? What's their uh motivating framework, right? Is it to avoid looking bad? Is it to master the content? Is it to whatever, look good? And so that can change, that can affect the behavior of the student, what actions they take, because they are taking those actions in response to avoiding looking bad or avoiding conflict with peers or something like that. Right? So those kinds of things. I mean, I think that the ones that we've included in the sample have some of them are explicit, tests of, you know, is this is this thing correlated with this thing, right? Like, is something that's happening, result in students doing this, right? That kind of a thing. Or if they have these characteristics, does it lead to this kind of behavior, kind of a thing, right? So, Rosemary, were you going to say something?
I was just thinking when you were talking that another element we could look at if we wanted to would be, because you said this is why we care. And I thought, do we want to look at did they discuss the impact of the resistance? So is that they saw, one of the things that we see, for example, is that students resist certain pedagogies and then they do poorly on the board exam in that category. So is that something, I mean, that's not part of our original research questions, but when you were talking about that, it made me think of that. And, we can't look at everything. It just depends on what it is that we think will lead us to making some conclusions that we have good data to back up what we're trying to say. But so I don't know if that's something that I'm trying to remember if any of the studies, I think mostly when that issue comes up, it usually comes up in the introduction.
Yeah.
Historically, students do poorly because they resist this and whatever. So it does sometimes touch on that, but it's not really core to the study. The other question or comment I had was on the recommendations for how they responded. Some of these studies were, look, my students never wanted to do this, so now I'm trying this new thing. This was the intervention that I did. And then they don't necessarily say I'm recommending this intervention, but obviously they wrote a paper on it. They are recommending it. And they're, so again, how much interpretation are we doing of what the author's meaning was, right? So if I'm saying, hey, I did this thing and it worked really great, does that translate into I recommend you do this too? Or do they have to specifically say, here's my recommendations on how to address this?
Right. Yeah, and I think, I mean, in our screening, we were certainly screening out the here's
built
here's
this
my
app.
neato
Yeah.
thing, right?
Right.
And that isn't really focused on other things, right? So,
Right.
um,
That it was just background information on resistance, but really it was about, I built this new app, look how cool it is.
exactly, right. Which is a decent chunk of the ones that we
Yeah,
that we
we
originally
eliminated
included because
those.
we were like maybe and maybe not, and then you read the paper and it's like okay, it wasn't. Okay. So I did throw in, motivation for the study as another potential element. Like if you, um, which may or may not be related to the impact, right? Because like you said, like whatever people aren't doing well on the board, exams, like that's why we're trying to do this because it's important. So,
From the other
so
one, I did
maybe one
like,
or the other, or maybe both.
oh, I don't know.
Or does motivation for the study fall into the this is why we care category of why we thought it was important to try to find a solution? I know, for example, we are looking
Right.
at making changes to some of our curriculum to address that, which include incorporating more different pedagogical methods that because students aren't, doing assigned reading or they're not doing this. So we're going to try to do it a different way. And I know I tend to want to interpret based on my own lens, and I know that's not appropriate for this. So I just want to make sure I'm slicing it correctly.
I think, I mean, I like where you're going, Rosemary, in terms of like, I think impetus or motivation for the study is different from kind of the results that they've
Right.
found. And I
Mhm.
feel like I ended up knocking out a lot of studies because we wrote it on there that like, if they were just interested in the performance of the student and like how well did they do on the test or whatever, weren't always dealing with resistance. So they ended up out of the bucket anyway,
Right.
because they weren't one of
True.
our two big categories. So I feel like I do think it's appropriate for us to try to categorize each of the, like what prompted them to do this, like what's their impetus or motivation for this piece. Those categories are likely to include, I mean, there's such a range. So like I liked
Mhm.
from your other list, I liked the type of essay that it was, that one category that you had on the other list. We don't have anything that's quite that. We've got a methods question. We don't have the type of essay question. Because I feel like I've seen so many what I would call teacher reflections, but it looked like you all called them autoethnographies on that other piece, which I like too. So like that's a like that's your, let me reflect on this. My students resisted when I did this. Let me reflect on this and think about how I might have done it differently, right? There's that. But then there's also some that are like straight up classroom survey studies, right? Like there's a gap in the literature and I'm going to investigate that, right? Um, and
Yeah.
then variations on that. So, um, so I don't know, does it just come with results, right? Like if they gathered new empirical evidence, like is it a results category? Like, um,
Um, yeah, I guess they have like a recommendations, which I mean,
yeah,
again, like these are things that we can
yeah,
modify. Like if it's like actually we're not, it's not recommendations, it's results or whatever, right? So I mean, we
yeah.
don't feel like we have to fit it into the current list. Um, so as you say,
I I've been making notes while we've been going. Can we make sure like there's some real sort of straightforward stuff that we know we want, right? Which is like what type of essay is it? Um, does it provide a definition of resistance? And if so, what is it? What's the thesis or research question? I think was good on that other list too. Like what's the,
I like that.
yeah, yeah. And
yeah,
then the methods question, is it qualitative, quantitative, or mixed? Or is it some other thing, reflective, right? I don't know if we want to, I liked the type of SOTL categories they had. Do we want that here too? Um, oh,
I'm trying. So is that like the what is
yeah,
what's yeah. Um, it it yeah. I mean, it could be interesting. So yeah, the four whatever
yeah,
is it the Hutchins?
yeah. And then we've got responses and recommendations. My list is not in a good order. Then we had the other stuff too, which I think was the geographic questions, and we had the disciplines and the population and the level, right? We had that up above.
Um,
And Rosemary, you mentioned like modalities, like we should know what kind of, yeah, it's on the list. It's on there still, right?
It is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's there.
yeah, there we go. Yeah, and and feel free to edit the document. Like, I mean, I guess we don't necessarily want
Yeah,
a lot of fingers in there,
yeah.
but feel free if there's something missing to to dump it in there so you don't lose it.
Because our job here, if I understand correctly, really is to say, here's who's talking about this and where they're talking about this idea. So like it's it's a lot of education disciplines, that's pretty clear, and these teacher training programs. And I think our bucket one, bucket two, like I can see already, like, oh, I'm curious now what the count is. How many of our articles are actually teacher education programs that are trying to do anti-racism work and their white students don't want to do it, right? Like how many of them are about that, right? Um,
Yeah, I think that's going to be an interesting thing is like, yeah, so what are the big, where do things cluster, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Um,
I haven't seen Tolman come up in anything explicitly. Has anybody?
No,
Yeah, there's been, I feel, maybe two or three. So
Okay.
it is not well, it is not
It's not the
and I
go-to.
think it's interesting. So, one of the things about Tolman was he was sort of like his approach was really to bring three or four different lenses, which are sort of his little boxes, right?
Yeah.
And say this is, so he brings them all together, but my sense is that, people, I mean, some people don't really do a rigorous, assignation of things. Other people use one of those lenses, right? So they'll say whatever, from the metacognitive or the cognitive development thing, right?
Yeah.
That's my lens that I care about, right? So I think that's interesting, right? So it is sort of like that the Tolman model is it's sort of on one level it's kind of really the only comprehensive one out there, but it's really not well. Um,
Used.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It hasn't permeated the consciousness.
Well, because the ones I was having trouble with when I was reviewing yesterday and today were all around teacher misbehaviors. And I was like, well, Tolman talks about that, but I'm seeing studies. I'm like, but they're not talking about this in terms of resistance. They're just talking about they're just expanding or testing the categories of teacher misbehavior, right? But I couldn't see. So they puzzled me. So I'm hoping the second reviewer disagrees with me and decides that they might belong so we could talk about them. But
Yeah, I think in one of our debriefings, we sort of, I think, talked about one of those kinds of papers and kind of landed on it not being a bucket one or bucket two thing.
yeah,
Um, unless you're saying your pedagogy is to be a bad teacher, like your pedagogical choice is to, I
yeah,
don't know. There was one, and maybe it was one of the ones you're reading. It was like one of the questions they asked students was, does your instructor come drunk to class and stuff like that? I
right.
just like doesn't seem like.
But
But
I
it
was
was
just
all
checking
kinds of
Tolman.
things.
He
Do
does
you
use
swear
that.
at the students? Do
Yeah, right.
you whatever? And you're just like, okay.
Yeah. But that would fall into his negative classroom experiences bundle.
Yes. Yeah, that kind of, yeah, so it's definitely in there.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that we could end up saying in our analysis of the project is, since we focused on these bucket one and bucket two things, maybe that has, I mean, it's narrowed the scope, which makes it more manageable and, maybe easier to fit into the 8,000 word limit and stuff. Um, so, but maybe that constrains the space, that integrated space that we're looking at, right? Because
Yeah.
it's less focused on, like I think well, prior experiences does show up to the extent that students who expect to be taught in a certain way, there's sort of that mismatch, which leads to resistance when they're just like, you should be lecturing to me and telling me all this information because I don't know what it is, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
There are two things that I'm thinking. One of them is like I'm not sure if it would be useful to capture like the keywords that like journals or um conference papers have, like selected by the author. Um
Mhm. Okay.
and have some kind of like a word cloud perhaps. I don't know, but I'm just saying
I
some
like that
ideas
idea.
here.
Yeah. Like, well, how are they what are their keywords
Hmm.
at the bottom that they've identified, right?
Hmm. The other thing is like the type of venue. So I think maybe this is more of an assumption. I think I'm coming across like more journal articles rather than conference papers, but it might be like because these are all education papers, that might be the case. So like I'm not sure what other types of venues there there are versus so conferences versus journals. Or if there's anything
Mhm.
in between, I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's book chapters slash full
Hmm.
books, right?
Oh yeah,
Slash
fair enough.
dissertations, which we which we
Which
which we
we've
did.
yeah.
eliminated.
Yep.
Yeah. So I guess we haven't really talked about, like, there's a handful of books. Um like full books.
Hmm.
And I don't remember. It's certainly possible that some of them made it through. Some of them, I think we thought it was marginal because it was like whatever. It's like a 300-page book, and there's like maybe a little section of one chapter or something, and you're just like, is this really about, like, do we really want to deal with this or not?
Hmm.
Is this central to what they're doing? I think some of them like were just like K-12 as well. Like some of the books ended up being about K-12 students. But Rupa, Rupa, did you have more, Rupa?
Oh, no, those were the two things I was thinking.
Okay. Yeah. So I think part of it is probably like we sort of limited to a certain kind of document, right? So like, some of the other kinds of things, whatever, so like, scholarly blogs or something like that, isn't in our sample and things like that. So it
Do
could be
we,
that that's what's indexed, right,
yeah.
largely.
I
Hmm.
mean, building on Rich, building on your point, do we
Hmm.
want to capture with the journals whether they're obviously some are SOTL journals and some look to be more sort of deeper journals or discipline specific spaces. Do we want to mark that out or no? Or will that
I
come when
think it would
we,
be a nice to have.
okay.
But I mean, it would be one other extra thing.
Yeah, but it might be easy to click
Yep.
it, right?
Yep.
Um,
But what does that tell us? I guess is my question.
that's a fair question. Um,
Um, it can show because I think one of the interesting things about the Sodal community is who's talking to whom and and
mhm.
who isn't. And
We're just
to
talking
some
to
extent,
ourselves.
yeah, so the different disciplines, right, are there's not necessarily a lot of leakage across those. So I mean we sort of get into that with the discipline checkbox.
Right.
So the other thing is, we can think about what can be automatically extracted from the data. So from a Zotero file or something like that. So for example, like a conference versus a journal article type, right? So that's probably captured. Although I think some of them aren't particularly for like books and things like that. They aren't sort of explicitly in there, but in general, right? Do we want to manually extract some data that can be automatically harvested in some way? So, again, in the previous in this other project, like we could extract author affiliations or something, right? So we didn't have to enter that information, right? Because it was a data element that was already there, and then we could just extract it and then run it through Excel or whatever else to say here's the distribution of things or how do we characterize, how do we organize? Um, yeah. I mean, I guess it is possibly true, for example, for location, right? Like, because some journals don't ever, some articles don't ever say like where this thing took place. They might say university in the southeast or something like that, right? Which automatically assumes that it's the southeast United States. You know, that you're assuming that that's what they mean when they say that. But if they're talking about a particular province, then you sort of have to interpolate that province is in Canada instead of, and so put it in the right box.
What are we missing? I like our list. I can see how it translates into the check sheet and allows us to gather some material about the pieces um,
And
and the nature of the conversation. And we've got a second. Is the next thing that happens? You've anticipated, Rosemary. We're like, now we got to we gotta interpret them in some way. Like we gotta thematize them in some way, which is beyond just description, right?
Right.
And maybe some of that's already emerged from our conversation. Like Michael, you were saying, like Tolman seems to be missing from this conversation, right? As a comprehensive model, but there's little pieces of it. Um,
Yeah, it's sort yeah, again, I'm going back to the SOTL definition, right? Like
yeah,
some very few people will give a comprehensive SOTL definition, but they might say something like whatever, Felton's five characteristics of good SOTL.
yeah,
So they don't say what it is, but they say this is good.
that
This
thing
is when you
over
do it
there.
well.
Yeah.
So yeah, they'll do little pieces of it, right? Little,
Yeah.
or
They're
they'll reference
nods,
Boyer, but they won't say what part of Boyer is really,
the key piece.
because I don't know, my interpretation is that Boyer
Dewey,
doesn't actually call for a scholarship of teaching and learning. He says teaching is scholarship. Not not writing about it, just doing it is a
is
form of
Nancy showing
scholarship.
up to, I'm curious now to watch you and Nancy have that
That's
conversation.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, she agrees that like
Boyer
it's
doesn't say that.
well, I don't know about that in particular. She
Yeah.
agrees that like definitions are pretty inconsistent, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's see here.
And I think that Rita's key words might capture some of that, because that was a conversation we had in the very early stages about, is it resistance or, disruption, or like there's, what were the synonyms that might come up. And I think we would capture that with keywords.
Yeah. In a more focused way. I mean, I found myself in a
Mhm.
few of them arguing with myself. Like I had posted on the first round, like, does blank equal resistance? And then I looked at the full article. I'm like, no, it doesn't. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that, and I think that's sort of illuminating, right? That,
Yeah.
you know,
Reluctance or this or that. There's so many synonyms that we came across.
Yeah.
Uh, and yeah, that question, I found that question popping up a lot. Well, is this resistance? Because people didn't hand in a draft of a paper to get feedback before they handed in the final paper. I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily call that
Yeah.
resistant.
Well, and I think especially when I looked at our two buckets, like I would say, like, no, they're neither resisting the content or what they're being expected to do. They're just not doing the thing, right?
They're just not doing it the way we wanted to see them do
Yeah.
it or whatever. But
yeah.
nobody refused to turn the paper in. They
Yeah.
just refused to do the feedback piece of it.
Yeah.
Although like one of the articles that was the focus of, was basically to do people resist getting feedback, right? And that
Yeah.
where feedback is the pedagogy, right? And or the assessment, right? Like that's where you learn is by getting feedback. So,
I think
um,
I saw one article that was about students' resistance to using services. But since we had said we wanted to focus on classroom, I don't think I included that one, but it was,
yeah,
why won't students go to the writing center when they need help kind of article.
right. Yeah.
What
Let's
else? What are we
see.
missing?
I don't know. I think we've got a lot here. It's going to be a lot. It's going to be
To sort
Yeah.
of
So
see
get
some
all
patterns
this,
in the conversation.
extract all this is going to be a job and a half.
yeah. So then I guess one of the next questions is like to look at it and say, is this reasonable, right? Like, is this, because you sort of don't want to have to go back and recollect data if you have a new question. but you don't want to collect a lot of stuff that you don't have to, right? So it's sort of trying to find that balance point.
So I guess
So
we should probably check in. Did you do this before? Like I could see where we might start doing it, where we realize like, I'm seeing another thing I want on my category list. Um,
right. So yeah, in terms of next steps for this, so we can build a sample template. Um, I think first we would, maybe reflect on this since we just sort of
okay.
threw it all in right now. So like maybe the next time we meet, um, uh, or maybe like a little bit before then, just say, finalize our sort of draft extraction template, and then I can put it together, and then we can do a sample, like do one or a few together, and then just say, okay, is this capturing all the stuff that we would like to capture from this paper, or what are the problems? Like is methodology really more nebulous than we think? Like, is this going to be more challenging? Um, is it going to be, so for example, as a checkbox thing, right? Or when we're doing the methodology, like, is it not, are they not mutually exclusive, right? Like, so if we're saying whatever, a qualitative study, but whatever, I don't know, it means, I don't know, but something else like a survey or something, right? But if you're doing a qualitative study of the survey, it's a fill in the blank kind of survey kind of a thing, right? Then they aren't mutually exclusive. So, do you try to subdivide them so they are? Do you make it more of a free text thing, with the challenges that the more free text it is, the harder it is to like lump them into piles at the end, right?
Yeah.
Like with our extraction criteria, right? Like we sort of kept on building, as you see a new one, a new exclusion criteria, we sort of added it to the system. Um, and you know but that also leads to you know inconsistencies, and yeah. Okay, let me stop sharing so I can see people again. How do I stop sharing? There it is. Okay. Hi, Nancy. Okay, so
Just
so we got
everybody. Sorry I'm late. I just wrapped up with the folks going up for tenure and promotion. Their materials are due in 2 weeks. So anyway.
yeah. So we looked through the where we're at with the full text screening, and we're pretty close. We're down to about 100-ish papers, and a lot of them already have at least one vote in. So we're in
And
the home
I'm gonna
stretch.
catch up soon. I'm behind. I suck. I'm gonna catch up soon.
I feel
Yeah.
the same way, so it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, yeah. I mean, we're all juggling vacations and all kinds of things coming up. So it's not a big deal. But so I think we're down to, if people can basically do another 20 things, reviews, then we're kind of there. So we really are in the home stretch, and it's a lot of people pitching in these past few weeks. So that's great. Um so
Meg. Aw,
mm,
yeah.
yeah. Yes. Yeah. So we did talk about that. It is, yes, it is sad, because it has been nice having all of us, and then people aren't able to continue. Um, and then sort of for the other kind of half of the meeting so far, we were editing I guess we were all editing in the agenda, the July 9 agenda field there, looking at the data extraction stuff. So we did a really quick tour of what the data extraction template looks like. Um, and sort of, how you sort of do one. And then and and then we were sort of like talking through some of the elements that we might want to capture. So if you're like in the agenda to be probably like the bolded things. So there's like a checkbox elements and there's a text box elements, which are sort of like, the things that you just check in and then the things that you actually compose. So this is sort of the brainstorm list. And I think for next time, we're sort of talking about kind of reviewing it and seeing if these are having reflected on it, whether these are things we want to capture, if there's any questions about it. And then yeah, maybe the best thing to try to do is like maybe a few days before our next meeting, like people weigh in with like here's some final comments, and then I can draft whatever an actual template, and then we can either do a couple together in the next meeting or whatever. And then that, so to trial it and see where the problems are with the document, right? Like, is this field really a checkbox field, or is this going to be more challenging? Or, like if it's a checkbox fields, do we really understand what the options are? Or are they, I think I was saying, are they distinct? Do they overlap? Is it more than one? Can there be more than one? Which is, I was sort of referring back to the methodology checkbox field from our other project.
Oh, did you run into trouble with that category? Okay.
Yeah, mostly, I mean, some of it was there was a lot of sort of, not necessarily opinion pieces, but argumentative essays.
They
And
were stuck.
so,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah,
They don't have a method. Yeah.
exactly.
right.
They
This
didn't
this
gather any
this
data.
is the big Nancy Michael divide of does something need to have a method? Is method whatever a dirty word?
Not a dirty word, just one we don't use. Not everyone uses that language.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the divide is, yeah.
Yes, it was
Just a quick
really a
question.
humanistic approach. Yeah.
Just a quick question. So I'm looking at what you had just highlighted. I'm looking at the checkbox elements and text box elements. Can someone just explain what impact of resistance means? What do y'all meant by that?
Well, I think what we were talking about there was, uh, is that discussed in the paper? So we did this intervention because students were resisting this method and it was resulting in them failing this portion of a board exam.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I don't know if that's something we want to include. That may only be
Like that.
appearing in a few studies, so it may not be worthwhile, but we were just sort of brainstorming.
Okay. Nope, now I understand what that meant. Great.
Yeah.
And then, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say outcome seems to be, it's tricky because like, it's not really the results of the study. It's like, is there an outcome? The student did X, was there an outcome from it, right? That's discussed or not, right?
Yeah. And that makes sense. I get it now. Yeah. And then in the checkbox elements, did y'all talk about what? No, I think I see the rationale. I was going to say, and then I'm going to take it back. Type of SOTL, the Hutchings questions. I think that's great to answer. I also think it's challenging. Y'all probably already talked about that, but it can be challenging. So I'm wondering if y'all talked about that. Like, yeah.
We didn't discuss it. I saw it on the other one. I thought that seems like a good thing to know, but say more. So we didn't talk about the challenges of figuring it out.
Yeah. So I think it's super helpful just because, when we help people start doing SOTL, one of the big things that we teach as part of that is Hutchings's taxonomy of 4 questions: what is, what works, visions of the possible, and conceptual frameworks. That's super helpful. And we focus on what is and what works, because the other 2 are kind of fuzzy, and I can say more about that, but that'll just complicate things. So it can be hard to categorize those. I think it's super helpful if we do the what is and what works at least. But the 4 can just get complicated, and there'll be a lot of conflicts or whatever. But I think what's most useful is the what is and what works, which is kind of descriptive, exploratory, what is, interventions, evaluations of effectiveness, what works. And those are fairly easy to distinguish, although some studies are kind of both, and that's okay too.
Yeah. And right. And it might be okay to say both, right? I mean, like it is check all of the above kind of a thing. Yeah. And again, the at this point, we were just throwing stuff against the wall and seeing,
Okay.
so it's not a winnowed down list. So
Great,
so
great.
there's
Yeah,
free
because y'all
freedom to
talked
like
about
tweak
it.
these and
Yeah.
do stuff.
I was just going to
Yeah.
see if y'all talked about it, but yeah, great.
Yeah.
Everything else I think is pretty clear to me. I mean, I'll reflect on it too. I just wanted to make sure I understood. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. With respect to that impact, outcome, and resistance, one of the pieces of discussion we had is like whether that is the same, or does it overlap with the motivation for the study, right? I mean, or are they different? So one is the motivation, and one is the outcome of the paper, right? So the results
Yeah.
kind of discussion kind of a thing, right? So because it might be useful to sort of capture like, so what exactly did they do, right? And then so that if we put them all in a big list together, we can say, okay, whatever, like this is a bunch of people found that this was a source of student resistance, or this was a way to fix things, fix active learning, that kind of stuff. So I think it's useful to sort of like capture like bottom line stuff.
I'm looking for a link to the buckets document. Anybody, is there an easy place for me to find that? Because I think, Michael, I remember that it wasn't in our materials and then you pulled it in somewhere, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think it was
And that's my
in the
fault.
manuscripts. It's in the manuscripts.
Is the link to it?
Well, I copied over the table.
That's the short version of it.
Okay.
Where's
Yep,
the
okay, I
big
got it.
table somewhere?
I got it. I just did a search, and I forgot that if you search in these, it searches all of the tabs, not just a single document. Yeah.
Can
Okay.
you add it to the tab somewhere?
Yep, I will. Yeah.
Yeah, because I realized I've printed it twice, so I must have access to it.
Yeah, and I think that's my bad, because I think I don't know where I created it, but
Okay.
yeah, I'll write myself a note to bring it into our navigation bucket in navigation. I was just going to look at that and see if anything came to mind, but y'all probably already did that. So you have the buckets on there, so that's there.
I guess, looking back at our 2 buckets though, like we talked a lot about the, do we want a category of resistance to either open-ended or a checkbox? Like we talked about pedagogical pieces, but we didn't always talk about the anti-racism pieces, like the resistance to what they're asked to think about categories.
Oh, I mean, actually say what it is.
Yeah.
What the bucket 2 item is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, there may be a simpler way to do that, because in both buckets, students are resisting an expectation because they have an expectation and the faculty member or whatever has an expectation. So that is present in both buckets. And it's what you were just saying for bucket 2 is like anti-racism, da 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 da. For bucket 1, it's that, they should collaborate as part of their learning, things like that. So maybe that's maybe 2 text box doohickeys
Mhm.
are what student expectations, teacher expectations, or something like that. We can think about a better way to say it, but I think that tension is beneath both of our buckets. I think.
Mhm.
A sort of disparity in expectations kind of thing.
And we can think in the interim time, we can think, is that like that may be just a drop down menu or a check select, like there may be a set, but then an other, if I forget how the form works, but it may not need to be a text box.
Yeah.
I do have to apologize, and I'm sorry, I've got to go. I have a workshop at 2 that I need to get prepared for.
What's it about?
So, it is inclusive teaching for residents.
You're allowed to do that.
Oh, yeah.
Go fight the good fight.
There you go. Take some notes for
I'm
resisting.
gonna make you,
resisting
Michael,
students.
as I leave, I'll make you the host, Michael, so you're in
Okay.
charge now.
All right. Do we have more do we want to discuss with these? Did anything else that we wanted to talk about?
Are the research questions listed there just to be helpful, or is that an agenda item?
Yeah, that was to clarify.
Okay. Yeah.
To align our research questions to the data that
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
extracting.
Good. And the conference went well. You already kind of reported out about that.
Yeah. Yeah, we saw a bunch of people that weren't at the in person or at the Banff thing. Yeah, I forget if I told you that like one of my fellow grad students I think maybe I told you is on another one of the writing groups, which I didn't realize until just like a month ago.
Oh,
Because she's a coordinator of another one of these groups. Um, and I had no idea. Like we were working on a different project, a completely different project. And then I'm just like your name popped up on on this list of people who are doing things. I was like, did you come from? So
Who is it? Who is it?
uh Bettina Boyle. She's doing a project on trust.
Oh,
And it was like, this is actually similar. So
can I just tell y'all, I went to the ICED conference, which is the International Consortium for Educational Development. It's the organization, the society under which IJAD, or the International Journal for Academic Development, that's their journal, but this is the organization. Trust, and this may not surprise you, or it may, was clearly the biggest theme, not in the stated conference themes, but in what people were talking about. So that just might be interesting for you to know. It was fascinating. Yeah. And I need to see. No, I don't think I've gotten it yet. The opening keynote was perhaps the best keynote I've ever seen. And it was recorded. I don't think we've gotten anything yet, but as soon as I get that, if it's publicly, I can't see how they do that behind a password. But I'll share it with you in case you're interested. It was David Green. Some of you may know the name David Green. But he kind of talked about what does this work look like in this current moment, and it was just so good, and he's so good. Anyway, but trust. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it is an interesting, well, so because this third project that I started working on with her is sort of related to how, educational developers and librarians are, are both working in a similar space of trying to negotiate between people, right? And a chunk of that is building trust. Like, why should I listen to you? Why do you, why do you matter? What can you do for me? Kind of a thing, right? Um, so and there's sort of that feeling of like, if you're, are you working in their, in their pool, or are you working in, how do you sort of bridge, right? So that's part of that isodal bridge theme that
Yeah.
we're sort of looking at. So yeah, so that's a thing we're kind of developing.
You're not saying that's part of our ICWG. You're saying that's separate
No,
from that?
no, actually it is.
Oh, good. Oh,
It
good.
is similar to ACWG too.
Or,
Um,
oh, okay.
but yeah, so we just have, yeah, this is like yet another. I have too many things going on at ISO.
You do. You do.
So
Yeah.
yeah. I will try not to do that again. So okay.
And then we have ISOTL, but that's a ways away,
We have
right?
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Plenty of
checked.
time.
We got time before we need to
Okay.
do anything.
Okay. So yeah.
Yeah, and as I sort of mentioned in my sort of quick write up, right? The round table was not really a round table. It was
Ah,
everybody sit together in one spot and
that was surprising.
and rotate stuff, which is what they said. That's what they said they were going to do, and they did it. But we just didn't believe them because that isn't how it worked before. So,
Interesting.
but it
Interesting.
was okay. I mean, like it was fine. And the other people that were facilitating were nice enough people, and and contributed and stuff like that. So they were,
Good.
yeah.
Rachel, what was the best thing about the conference?
I think just getting together with the whole group, with seeing others in the other groups. Yeah, that was great.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, the AI group, was it the AI group?
Yep.
Like a bunch of us ended up at that session, I think, just because there weren't conflicts and there weren't whatever round table. Everybody was in a different spot and couldn't talk to each other because we were stuck in our spot. Um, but yeah, so a bunch of us were there, and I think we had a good discussion, like amongst ourselves.
And Janice was not there, right?
She
Or
was,
Janice was there, Julie was not there. Was Julie there?
yes, you're right. Julie was not there.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, Janice was a little late, but I was like, I don't know. There was like World Cup traffic.
Oh,
So like
yeah.
I don't know, like the Friday I went into Toronto, and like we are listening to the news, and they're just like there's a rolling blockade because the team buses, like, you can't have anybody else on the road or something,
Oh,
um,
wow.
for safety, right? So it was a little bit of a mess. I mean, it probably wasn't that big of a mess, but it was a little bit of a mess.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So
funny.
are you enjoying that?
Oh, I actually live like 45 minutes away from like downtown. So it's been not quite like it's been the same for me. But yeah, I avoid going into town um for the next few weeks, I think, until all
Yeah.
this ends. But the vibe in the city has been great. Like very like everyone's like got their flags up, when their cars pass by, they have their flags. Some yeah.
Yeah, there was
Yeah.
yeah, as I was, because I was like, oh, right, because I was in there, I was like, oh, they're not playing today, so like that's not going to be a problem. So we drove into the city, and and then I forgot that they've got like watch parties and stuff like that. And so luckily we didn't get stuck, like the places, we weren't, it wasn't shut off, but like there was one spot where all these like Scottish folk or people dressed up as Scottish folk were like crossing the street, and like they weren't even like, I don't think Scotland ever played in Toronto, maybe. But but they were going for the watch party, and I was like, oh, it's the watch party. So we got out of there luckily before it got too out of hand. But
Is it true? I don't know if this is true. I heard that this can't be true. Boston ran out of beer. Is that true?
I saw it on the news too. So yeah.
What does that even mean? That a city like Boston ran out of beer? What does it mean to run out of beer? That's beyond a single refrigerator. I can't wrap my head around what that looks like for a whole city. That's a lot of beer.
yeah,
Yeah.
very much so. All right.
So our task is continue with the full text review, try to do at least 20 more. I'll try to do a little more. Reflect on the checkbox and text box elements. I will find the more detailed bucket document and add it to make it more clear in the navigation. Is that it?
I think so.
Yeah. Let's see. And we have another meeting scheduled, is that right?
Do we? Let's see.
We should. But let's check. I just put that homework on there.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Oh, cool. The 23rd.
23rd of July.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay. I am
Right.
available then. Yes, I will not miss that.
Yeah. So we should be able to be done with our full text review by then, I'm hoping. Yeah.
We're hoping.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, that's the goal. That's the goal.
Yep.
And that's a realistic goal if we.
Yeah, that was our goal from last meeting,
Oh,
right?
oops.
As
Oh.
we were like, we're gonna do this, we're gonna get back on track. And the goal was that we would try to be done by sort of, I think basically the meeting on the 23rd.
Oh,
So
okay. I thought you meant by
So-
today. Like
No,
then
no,
the
no,
world
no.
fell apart. Okay.
But we you know, like I said, we did pretty well in these past couple of weeks. So we're
Well,
getting
thanks
there.
to those of you who did, because that was not me. Yeah.
Just trying to do my part.
Yeah. All right. Are we good then? Anything else?
Yeah, I'm eager to talk more in depth about the articles with y'all. But
Yeah.
Yeah, that's sort of the fun part, but it takes a while to get there. Right?
Yeah.
So- all right. Well, take care, everybody.
Thanks.
you.
Yeah.
See you
Good
in a
to
little
see y'all. See you soon.
bit. Okay.